We were addressing quite similar points as well. I think what we came away with was understanding your audience for your evaluation. I mean, there was quite a lot of experiences, perhaps, of gathering and evaluating the information, but not necessarily understanding why those questions were set to be evaluated. Again, it might be down to the fact that funding bodies had set the questions, that they had almost defined up front what the impact should be, what the expectation of the impact is. There was an example of an exhibition that had been going at the Hunterian, and it was quite a qualitative study. The expectation was quite high about what impact that would have in partnership with other organisations, whereas another example was perhaps it was very difficult to even understand how to evaluate quite a unique exhibition. So a lot of those questions were perhaps more, I'm not sure why I'm being asked to do this, or how I create a way to establish what this impact is. So we came away with a few sort of thoughts more than anything of who's the audience for assessing the impact, and is the impact something that's already set, the expectation of that is set quite early on by perhaps the government who's providing money or funding bodies or institutions. And some thoughts that came out towards the end was, is value really quite an individual thing? You know, the impact is something that's set and can be quite formal, but value, what somebody walks away from an exhibition thinking, is so individual. I've taken something from that. How do you actually evaluate that? So we had some sort of balancing to do with what we thought value or impact was. So I wouldn't necessarily say we were looking at it from a strategic point of view, but perhaps a bit more conceptual. So I don't know if that's useful. But I think one of the things we were talking about was the idea that it's very resource heavy to do evaluation, whether it be a more traditional way of counting 5-bar gates of who comes in and out of an exhibition, or doing something more qualitative, which seems to illustrate the value better. But it's very resource heavy. It might just be piloted in certain exhibitions or museums. Is there a way to bring that together, to research it, to study it in a common way that adds value to lots of institutions, not just that one particular one that's gathering the information? I know from my point of view that would be hugely valuable to have that research.
That's a very useful point, and I think it's useful because one of the questions, and for us this is the 4th workshop, so we're trying to think where we take. That's a little bit of a small step towards that direction that the workshop, the whole network was trying to do, to bring together institutions and share the experience, but also come out with something that's useful for the wider community, and it's quite tricky. I really liked Titi's idea of the participatory element within the evaluation, because it's always very resource heavy, so maybe involving the stakeholders from very early on might be partial answer to this, but also is how do we get together to share good practice and experience, lessons learned, or bad practice, or what didn't work, but also given the diversity and the special nature of cultural and creative industries there, how much of this is generalizable? But I think it's what everybody kept saying about the intersection of the dialogue. Something from there, if you open it up, is bound to be useful for others as well.